Welcome to day 2, everyone. It was interesting to see yesterday that most of you wanted to house sit to travel slowly, to experience different cultures and to live more like locals. House sitting really does provide those opportunities, but not everywhere in the world. So today we're going to look at where you can house sit and how you can find your house sitting assignments. Some locations are much more popular than others. The countries where there are plenty of opportunities are places like Canada, America, the UK, Europe, places like France and Spain particularly, and the birthplace of house sitting, Australia and New Zealand. Then there are other countries where the concept is starting to take off: Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, Thailand. And as these expat communities flourish, or a country or region becomes popular for retirement, then the need for house sitters starts to grow. There are other places where you'll find the occasional sit, maybe Fiji, Hawaii, Ecuador, Peru, or other countries in Europe too. But word's spreading, and we've seen far more locations gaining popularity over the last 4 or 5 years. For example, when we lived in China for a year as English teachers, we couldn't find a single house sit. The following year we came across 2. Today I searched across the house sitting platforms and found 15 outstanding opportunities. As China opens up to the West and international trade and teaching opportunities increase, more expats are choosing to live in the first and second tier cities. This is how house sitting spreads. But right now, for instance, if you're looking for a house sit in Colombia, they are few and far between. I know because we've been looking for a couple of years now. The other important point is that in some areas, house sitting happens more via word of mouth or by referral. We used to live in Bocas del Toro in Panama, and this is a typical example of a tight-knit expat community where house sitters are generally found via referrals. Few appear on the house sitting platforms, so you have to find other ways to infiltrate the house sitting scene. One way would be to rent for a while and immerse yourself in the local community. Promote your services by networking. We've got friends who did this in Bocas and have lived there as permanent house sitters for 5 years now. They moved from one long-term house sit to the next. But promoting yourself is a whole other topic, so maybe we'll cover that at another time. So it's important to consider where you want to travel and where you want to house sit. It's a good idea to check and see if there are house sits available in the countries you'd like to visit. The easiest way to do this is to check out the larger international house sitting platforms and search the different locations. To get a good idea, I'd personally look at all or one of the 3 largest websites. We've used them all and can vouch for them, but for different reasons, and we'll go into that more later in this video. For now, take a look and browse for house sits on any one of them. There's no charge for looking. So I'd suggest check your location choices on Nomador, Trusted House Sitters and House Carers. We'll provide all the links in a downloadable file in Facebook. With Nomador, you need to scroll down to the blue button labelled Browse All House Sits. If you want, you can check the box to limit the search to available sits, but it could be good to see past and present when you're looking at patterns of availability. Then you can filter by city, region or country. On Trusted House Sitters, choose from the top bar, Find a House Sit, and select from the drop-down of locations in the Where Do You Want to House Sit box. You'll be presented with current sits, faded out past sits, and similar available options. On House Carers, browse Houses to Sit from the top menu, select a country and you can narrow down by region. Then click Search. If nothing comes up or there are only a few shown, you can also view house sits filled. This gives you a useful list showing the frequency of sits in the location you chose, going back years. Once you've decided on one or more locations, you'll need to ask yourself a few more questions, like, do you need a visa and how long is it valid? This will help determine the length of sit you can accept. When is high and low season? And if the location is subject to extreme weather like hurricanes, when in the year do they occur? Check out the climate. When are the hottest and coolest times to visit? How much will your travel costs be at that time of the year when you want to travel? Remember, out-of-season flights can be much more expensive and less frequent. There's a great resource called thebasetrip.com which gives all sorts of information on a location. showing weather, visas, currency, cost of living, and it even compares your current location against the location of your choice. So take a look. At this point, it's probably good to say that many people start out by house sitting locally for family and friends. We did it this way and told everyone we knew that we were available to house or pet sit. We had a number of friends jump at the chance to take a weekend break while we cared for their homes and pets. This had two great outcomes. First, we found out what it's like to live in someone else's house following their routines. And secondly, we were able to get references for actual house sits, not just character references. And these are so important when you start out with international house sitting. House sitting locally, though, also means that you can go and meet the homeowner and the pets. You can make connections and start building the trust that's a bit more difficult at a distance. You'll always find some homeowners willing to give newcomers a chance, but many more will be looking for a solid reference history, especially if you are travelling overseas for a sit. The more flexible you can be, the more easily you'll find house sits. If you restrict yourself to one country or region and a very particular time of the year with specific pet requirements, then you'll possibly struggle more. Don't be fixed in your choices. We pretty much allow the house sits that come up to guide us around the world. So last year we loosely decided on Europe, but we ended up in Mexico and Central America. That's part of the fun. So back to the question of which house sitting website should you choose. Well, this depends very much on the information you're going to discover about the frequency of sits in the locations you've chosen. I mentioned 3 of the big international sites: Trusted House Sitters, Nomador and House Carers. There's also another smaller international site called House Sit Match. One of the reasons many people prefer the smaller sites is because as a newcomer, the competition is less when you're applying for sits. It can be daunting when you look at Trusted House Sitters and see sitters with 50 or more references. Although I have to say, we've only got 5 references on our profile and we've just secured 6 sits over the next 8 months. Really, it's as much to do with having a great profile, applying in a professional manner, and getting your alerts sorted out so you're applying as soon as the advert appears. But that said, you might prefer the intimacy of a smaller site like House Sit Match. Or, if you're looking more specifically at Europe, you might find Nomador has more options, in France and Spain for instance. They also have a great sense of community. It's all about finding what works best for you, but certainly check out how the site meets your location expectations. Many people are disappointed when they simply join the biggest site and then don't get the sits they expect, but they don't realise that they just aren't seeing that many opportunities in the locations they've chosen. This is where country-based sites come into their own. There's another group of house-sitting platforms and they individually cover a variety of countries. These include Australia, New Zealand, UK, the US and most recently Canada. They are known as Aussie house sitters, Kiwi house sitters, etc. There's also a newish website for Mexico where house sitting is becoming more and more popular. They're aptly called House Sit Mexico. We found it useful to sign up to one of the bigger international sites and one of the regional or country-based sites, if it covers the area we're looking in. Some people question the cost of signing up to these platforms, but we easily justify it. Most are only the cost of one night's decent hotel or Airbnb accommodation. So for instance, we signed up to Aussie House Sitters last month because we had a gap while in Perth, Australia, and they have more sits in that location. It cost us 65 Aussie dollars, but we got 2 house sits covering 21 days, both with swimming pools in great locations, just before and over Christmas. Similarly, we paid $119 for Trusted House Sitters, but got 6 house sits lined up over 3 months, spanning 60 nights of free accommodation. There are other options for promoting yourself, like Facebook groups, but they do require special considerations and extra due diligence, in my opinion, which we won't have time to cover in this short intro. So, for today's challenge, go take a look at the house-sitting platforms I mentioned and see what's available in your favourite locations. How do they compare? As you're browsing, see if you're drawn to any particular features of the sites, Sometimes people choose based on ease of use and functionality as well. Then share with us up to 3 locations you'd like to house sit in, and we'll see what collective information the group can provide from their experiences. If you've already had house sits and perhaps already belong to a house sitting platform, tell us how you made your choice. Tomorrow we're going to be drawing more information together for your profile by looking at your relevant skills and how you can best describe yourself to a homeowner. So until then, have a good evening. Goodbye.